Good evening, everyone. I'm Justin Williams, Associate Professor of History and Director of the African American Studies Program here at University of Detroit Mercy. And welcome to Ujamaa and the Ignatian Tradition with a featured talk by our honored guest, Joseph Albert from Loyola High School in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. As an alum of Loyola High School, Joseph has continued his advocacy of Jesuit educational values from Dar es Salaam to Boston College and Fairfield University. You'll hear more about him and his work throughout the evening, but I think you'll find his focus on the core beliefs that connect us across national borders will be a welcome palate cleanser from the social environment that accompanies our closely contested national elections, especially in swing states like Michigan. Before we get started with this evening's programming, our wonderful Dean of the College of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences, Jacqueline Barichka, whose years of experience collaborating with Loyola High School has made tonight possible, would like to offer some welcoming words.
Great. Thank you so much, Justin. And thank you everyone who is here this evening. So oftentimes in Kiswahili, we welcome in Kiswahili, no surprise there. And in Kiswahili, we would say welcome by saying karibu, which is a word that Joseph Albert has shared with many of us over the past few days. Indeed, we would add habari ya jioni, which technically means what is the news of the evening, or wishing you a good evening. I am Jacqueline Barichka, Dean of the College of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences, or CHAS. As we get started, first, I wish to thank CLASA, directed by Philosophy Professor and Chair Gail Presby, and the African American Studies Program, directed by History Professor Justin Williams, for their co-sponsorship of this evening's event. On behalf of the College and University of Detroit, welcome to this wonderful event celebrating the connections between Tanzanian history and Detroit Mercy's Jesuit tradition through the concept of Ujamaa. Ujamaa has many nuanced meanings, but begins with the idea of unity through community. One of my favorite ways of envisioning this is through this wood carving, and hopefully you can see it on your screens at home. Let's see. Here we go. This is the wood carving that hopefully, there we go, that you can kind of get an idea of the expression of Ujamaa. You can see that it features peoples entwined together as one. My experiences over the past 12 years through my partnership with Loyola High School, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, manifest Ujamaa. The giving of self for others is profound, making Tanzanian culture one that is built on the foundation of radical hospitality. This founding concept of our college and our university builds on our Jesuit tradition to outline 3 steps: remembering, welcoming, and belonging. These 3 steps provide us with a practice of radical hospitality that empowers us to enact our belief that diversity is our strength. Our speaker this evening personifies this Ujamaa. I am honored to welcome my friend and colleague, Mr. Joseph Albert, economics faculty member at Loyola High School in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. He is currently here in the United States, spending about 10 days with us at the University of Detroit Mercy here in Detroit, Michigan. He is here to build our relationship at UDM, in CHAS, and with Loyola High School here in Detroit. He has spoken in economics, history, and philosophy courses, met with college faculty, and attended Mass today, engaging with our vibrant Jesuit community. In the college, we are pursuing a Fulbright Hays grant that will bring 14 higher and K-12 educators from the Detroit area to Dar es Salaam in the summer of 2026. We are thrilled to develop this partnership and deepen our connections across cultures and continents within the global Jesuit community. Thank you all so much for being here this evening.
Thank you so much, Dean Barichka, and thank you so much for your wonderful support of the African American Studies program. And we're very excited also for the collaborations between Detroit Mercy and Loyola High School. And so thank you for your work on that. And now we're going to have some opening remarks by our Father Charles Oduke, Vice President for Mission Integration here at University of Detroit Mercy. And as a Kenyan Jesuit priest for 2 decades with a PhD from Boston University, he's the perfect choice to contextualize many of the themes that you're going to hear in Joseph Albert's featured talk. Father Oduke, thank you.
Going to get my video, start my video. Okay. Karibuni. Welcome. And thank you very much. Asante sana. That's another Swahili word. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dean Jacqueline. And thank you very much, Professor Justin Williams, for putting this session together and for bringing our guest all the way from Tanzania to share with us values that we share in common. Today at the monthly mass of the Mission Integration Office, we remembered and reflected on the Uka martyrs. These are the 6 Jesuits and their 2 guests, a mother and her daughter, who were violently murdered 35 years ago on the campus of the University of Central America. And the names of the 6 Jesuits are Ignacio Elacuria, Ignacio Martin Baró, Segundo Montes, Joaquin Lopez, Armando Lopez, Juan Ramon Moreno, and their 2 guests, Elba Ramos and her daughter, Selena Ramos. And then we also remembered the thousands of Salvadorians who remain nameless. Father Joe Daoust, in his homily at today's Mass, reminded us of the mission of the UCA. And that mission is very much related to our own mission here at the University of Detroit Mercy. And he highlighted it in 2 words: to enlighten and to transform. To enlighten the students about the real life challenges and problems around us. So for us here in the city of Detroit, in the neighborhoods that surround us, and we being as bridge makers in Metro Detroit, and the reality of our history here in Detroit. And in turn, through the education we receive and give, to transform the lives of those around us, so that as human beings all can flourish and be fully human and fully alive the way God intended each one of us to be. And in doing so, we contribute to the common good. And we aim, in doing so, and we aim to do it to the best of our ability. And that's what we mean by the Magis. That's what we mean by an excellent education, educating our students to be agents of social transformation for the common good. An example of a leader who was a catalyst for social transformation and advancing the common good is Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, who our guest presenter will speak about tonight within the context of Ujamaa. In his book, The Republic, and most of us students, part of our core education is reading classical philosophical texts. And I'm assuming and hoping that you have come across Plato's writings. And so in his book, The Republic, Plato speaks of the philosopher king. And this is the ideal ruler who combines political skill with philosophical knowledge. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, the first president of the Republic of Tanzania, and the one who came up with the concept of Ujamaa, is an exemplar of a philosopher king. He was very well educated and actually a philosopher by training, and dedicated his life as a teacher. Hence, the Swahili title for teacher, Mwalimu, was permanently added to his name. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere was deeply steeped in the philosophical outlook and wisdom of African sages. The African concept of Ubuntu shaped his idea of Ujamaa. Ubuntu has to do with our common humanity. We are human because of the inherent dignity of each of us. And the inherent dignity of each person affirms our shared dignity. And so for African sages like Mwalimu Nyerere, because we are, I am. Ujamaa stresses that we are one human family because we share the same dignity. Together, we have to create an ecosystem for all to thrive and succeed. And like Dean Jacqueline mentioned, unity through community. Mwalimu Nyerere was not just an intellectual, but one committed to living both humanistic values and the virtues of his Catholic faith. Because he believed and respected the dignity of all, it is what led him and inspired him to minister to their needs in a very selfless way. He lived a simple lifestyle, resembling that of the average citizen around him. In post-independence Africa, many leaders became autocrats, plutocrats, dictators, nepotistic, shamelessly amassing vast amounts of wealth through graft and nefarious means. But that was not the way of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. And so he remains a model of a leader of integrity, one who put his skills at the service of his people. And that's why I would say he's a model of a philosopher king that Plato spoke about. He remains a shining example of a selfless leader, one who leads with humanistic values interpreted through the lenses of his Christian belief. And in doing so, enabling each citizen to thrive and succeed. Right now, the Merino missionaries, these are Catholic missionaries out of New York, who worked for many years in Tanzania and were responsible for the education of Mwalimu Nyerere. Right now, they are the ones leading the cause, championing the cause for his beatification. In the Catholic tradition, when a person's life is exemplary, he's held out as a saint to be emulated by others. And so the process of making Julius Nyerere one of the saints to be revered and emulated in the Catholic Church has started because of how he lived his life. And when this will happen, when he will become beatified, he will be the patron saint of presidents of nation states, not just for Africa, but for the entire world. And even in our own new dispensation here in the United States that we have just started, how I wish that our new president, the president-elect, will borrow a leaf from the life and example of Julius Nyerere. Please join me in welcoming another mwalimu, another teacher, Mwalimu Joseph Albert of Loyola High School, Dar es Salaam. Karibu mwalimu.
Asante sana. Nashukuru Father. I'm very happy and honored and delighted to be part of the family here in the US, far away from East Africa. Let me take this opportunity to say thank you, Dr. Jacqueline. Thank you for your invitation to your community. Thank you for the opportunity of traveling far away from East Africa to the US. I really appreciate for this opportunity. Thank you, Father, for your introduction, and thank you for hosting me in your Mass today. And I was there listening the homily from Father, and I'm very happy and honored because even Father, we share the same name, Joseph. So thank you, Father Oduke, for that wonderful and very insightful introduction about Mwalimu. It is true, Mwalimu Nyerere is one of the leaders who inspired many African leaders, who inspired the young leaders, those who are still thinking of leading their countries, leading their villages, leading their district. Most of them, they've been citing Mwalimu Nyerere, not only because he's our founder of our country, but a good example to everyone. Even me, let me join you, Father, by saying that I wish all leaders, not only here in the US, but around the world, at least to receive that stick is just like a relay, to receive a stick from this relay of being a leader to whom being a saint, that will be the first time ever in the history of humanity. So that will be the way of talking about Mwalimu Nyerere. And this year, on 14th October, probably even many years, we have been remembering the day he passed away. And this year we have celebrated his life for 20 years since when he passed away. So we are happy for his life. We are happy for his wisdom to our life. Let me introduce the idea of Ujamaa. This is one of the ideas which Mwalimu came to share our life in Tanzania and Africa at large. So the idea was introduced by the first Tanzanian president. His full name is Julius Kambarage Nyerere, a son of a chief in the northern part of Tanzania in the regions known as Mara. The idea came after the country gained independence from the colonial masters. The idea is formed from an ideas which we have been using them, we have been applying in our present life. Let me take you through our family. In our family, it is the smallest unit to form a district, to form a state, to form a nation, to form a continent. So within our family, we are after each other. Within our family, we are after caring each other. Whether you are a daughter, whether you are a son, you are a grandparent, you are the nephew, you can rename. That one is one of defining Ujamaa. Because Ujamaa, the other name of Ujamaa means undugu, umoja. So a family is part of umoja, undugu, of which we are after each other. You can go to a community like the University of Detroit Mercy is a community from a president, a vice president, deans, all these one, they work together in that sense of Ujamaa, undugu. They are not working as a separate entity. They are working as a separate entity for the common good, of which, when you talk about the University of Detroit Mercy, you cannot separate one schools to the other because all of them, they are after achieving the common good. So that is another way of thinking about Ujamaa from an institution point of view. The same you go to a state, the same you go for a continent, and the same you go at the world at large. We have the United Nations. These people, we talk about the same language when they meet in their annual meeting. The same goes to business point of view. They have corporate leaders, the CEO, the managing directors. These people, when they meet, they speak the same language because they are there for the common purpose, or they are there to meet the well-established objectives. The same applied if you go to sports, teams. Let me take a football team, soccer. In the soccer, I remember during my class of physical education, we have the defensive department, we have the withholding department, we have the midfielder department. Again, we have the striking department. These departments from a particular nation team, they work together. They cannot work independently, otherwise they will be defeated. This also can be another way of defining Ujamaa, undugu. If the defensive are not cooperating with the midfielder, it means the opponent, they will score, and this will be a disaster to those who support that team. So that idea, that is the idea which began long time ago. It is not an idea which maybe is not rooted in our human development. And that idea, as Father said, it is the philosophy which Nyerere was trying to endorse in our daily life. And that was the basis of African socialism. It is rooted from a deep consideration of humanistic values for persons and for social responsibility. So if it is rooted in the humanistic consideration for persons and for social responsibility, that idea came as soon after Tanganyika. This is the name before the two independent countries, Zanzibar and Tanganyika, united in April 1964. there is where we have Tanzania. So since 1961, we had Tanganyika and we had Zanzibar. So 1964 is where the president of that time, Aman Abedi Karume, the former president of Zanzibar, and Julius Kambarage Nyerere, the prime minister of Tanganyika, decided to unite to form Tanzania, the one we have today. And Tanganyika, by that time, which now is Tanzania, the mainland, and Zanzibar, the island, the most respected destination for tourism, Zanzibar. There are many reasons. There are many reasons for the unification. One of them was the idea of Ujamaa, because Mwalimu Nyerere wanted to make sure if Ujamaa should go to the entire Africa, why we should not begin here? They are saying charity begins at home. So he approached the president of Zanzibar that it's better we form a united Republic of Tanzania. The other reason, it was because of the impact of slave trade, of which many of members from Tanganyika, they were taken to Zanzibar for slave activities. The same, many members from Zanzibar were being taken to the mainland, and that brought the idea of intermarriage and some cooperation in economic activities. So it was very hard also in one way or another not to be united. So that idea of Ujamaa was taking place because of that activities. And as it is well known that Mwalimu Nyerere, he was the pioneers of making sure the East African cooperation. And not only that, even the African Union, of which in one or another, they've been remembering him to be the greatest leaders ever happened in the history. So what was the ideas which Nyerere brought about? The life of many Tanzanians before independence were affected completely by the colonial masters. For example, in mainland Tanganyika, the Europeans, the Germans, and the British, and in Zanzibar, the Arabs. These were the colonial territory. And the idea behind for the colonial, it was for the raw material. This is a non-human interest from the colonial masters, and cheap labor. And these ideas came by the colonial masters. And before the colonial period, many members from Zanzibar and Tanganyika, by that time before Tanzania, they were cooperating in the sense that when there is any production activities in agriculture, in leadership, in social activities, that idea was there of Ujamaa, undugu, upendo, familyhood. That was the idea which was dominating the life of many Tanzanians. So the idea came to be dead because the colonialists came with the intention of which it was to separate them. And you know, it was divide and rule ideas. And Nyerere was there as a son of Africa, as a son of Tanganyika, and he was little, young, so he could not do anything, but he was observing, reflecting that this kind of life brought by the colonial, it is not the life which they have been experiencing before. After attending the Catholic mission school, of which even Father Oduke shared about that one, Nyerere came with the idea of liberating Tanganyika people, liberation in Africa, even attending a number of the UN meeting demanding justice, demanding independence to African community, to Tanganyika community. That's why in 1961, we got our independence through a peaceful means, comparing to other states of which it was supposed to be either a revolution, like in Zanzibar, it was a revolution, when the colonial masters, they were not ready to grant the independence. Even you can name a number of African states, those who came by a means of army or fighting. But in Tanganyika, we got an independence through a peaceful means. And if you read and you hear the most of speech by Nyerere, he was saying, independence will help to restore the African dignity, Utu, because he observed for a number of years that Africans, Tanzanians, and the world at large, because of the colonial activities, we lost our Utu. That is the Swahili word of dignity. Again, he saw some of the discriminatory practice in social life, in health, in education, in wage rates. These ideas were not meaningful to Mwalimu. He fought and he organized that this is not the way on how we need to treat each other, and this is not the way on how we need to experience the life for our fellow humans. So he decided to form a party, and he decided to mobilize members, at least to start explaining to many members in Tanganyika by that time and African at large. And he did that one for the aim of educating. So you have to understand, why do we call Mwalimu? Because he said the best option of making sure our fellow humans understand is through teaching. And he began explaining by using Swahili, because by that time, most of Tanganyika members, they were divided into smaller groups called tribe. For us in Swahili, we call Kabila. So how to unite them? So he began teaching, explaining using Swahili. That's why Swahili now is most spoken language. And even the UNESCO decided to recognize Swahili. Even in July each year, we have the Kiswahili Day. And I wish that once in a while, because of the project we are developing, even at our beautiful University of Detroit Mercy, we will start learning Kiswahili, and Father Oduke is here. I'm sure he will be there to officiate. So I pray that one. So Kiswahili was the means to unite people, because majority, they were using their kabilas. And we are almost 123 kabilas in Tanzania. Can you imagine? It is a tough work to unite people. And some of them, they were being sided by the colonialists because they could not understand what Mwalimu was trying to share. And so the idea was to abolish that a loss of dignity, utu, to remove all unfair practice in the social life, in the health system, in education services, even in the wage rates. At the same time, building the self-confidence of people. Majority of members in Tanganyika, even Zanzibar, even Africa at large, they were not having a confidence which were being destroyed or being damaged or being affected by the colonial master. So the idea was to build a self-confidence of the people. And apart from that, to establish a socialist state, because after attending his studies, as Father Oduke said, attending his master's in philosophy, he was able to understand the way on how economic system work, how to organize a society. And I'm sure he was aware about Karl Marx. He was aware about Lenin. He was aware about Adam Smith, because these are the pioneers which came to provide ideas and to give some of the theories and philosophies on how a society should be organized. Nyerere was not happy with the capitalist way of organizing a society, because he said during his time when he was a child, he observed how the colonial masters, they were just applying the idea of capitalism. He said this is not a good way because it destroys utu, dignity, because you cannot sell a human being like the way how you sell a share in the stock exchange market. He was not happy because he said you cannot be rich by selling your fellow human being. So Nyerere never understood the reality of international capitalism at all. And he was very, very, very harsh when it comes to that ideas. So Nyerere came with the set of ideas after reflecting and observing the social relations, economic setup, and the ownership of land and the other major means of production during the colonial period. So he said the best option is to bring other ideas. Of course, people, they can think, is Ujamaa not the same like socialism, the one which was talking by Karl Marx or by Lenin from the Russian ideas? Of course, Nyerere was somehow different. For him, he said, Ujamaa, first, that will be the basis of African socialism. Ujamaa, umoja, undugu, familyhood, to be the set of ideas designed to give an individual a unified and a conscious perception of people. It is far away from the one how Karl Marx was talking about and Lenin was talking about. For him to give you an ideas, an attitude of a unified way, being conscious and perceiving people, family, and person. And this was a turning point. If I can borrow the language from the Jesuit, this was the cannonball moment that Nyerere view about humans, and specifically being men and women for others. These are the ideas which the Jesuit, they've been living with them, they've been advocating to be men and women for others. And Nyerere, by considering that if me, I will stay aside and looking at my fellow humans losing their dignity, utu, being discriminated in various social spheres, which are very important, he said this should end immediately. Human suffering, loss of dignity made him to reflect and bring respect to all human beings without discrimination. So this was Ujamaa, the basis of African socialism, and the courage of reconciliation. Because if Mwalimu was supposed to be very harsh or not considerate, he could even ask the army to kill or to fight with the colonial masters. But he was very considerable. He said, let us use the reconciliation. And he insisted, if you read Freedom and Development, he insisted that the Wazungu, that is the Swahili version of the colonial masters, these are our fellow humans. We should not consider them our enemy. We should consider them our friend. However, we need to educate them that even us, we are humans. This was the basic principle on which to base the future action. That was the dream of Nyerere, that in order to establish the African socialism through ujamaa, umoja, cooperation, undugu, should be the basis on how the future action. And what was the idea behind this? He said, after observing the existing ideologies of learning such as Karl Marx and Lenin, he said, these are ideologies which they are not giving you how to act. They're just telling you how to behave. So he said, by bringing Ujamaa, that it will help us to act rather than to behave or to have the concept in your mind. So he said, no, the best option is to have Ujamaa. That will be the basis for us to act. According to Nyerere, although this worldview may give an individual a certain outlook, it does not indicate to him or her how he or she should act. And his ideas was practical to enable people to transform into consistent action for the benefit of all people. So that was the way how Nyerere, he was insisting and tried to differentiate from the existing ideologies of Karl Marx and Lenin. And in one or another, several times, he said, people, they've been asking me about Ujamaa, Undugu, or socialism. He said, for me, I will repeat several times. He said, my concern was the absence of exploitation, regardless whether you are Mzungu, whether you're African, you're Tanganyika, Zanzibar. I have to see the absence of exploitation. The people's ownership of whatever that belongs to them, including land. He insisted land is a God-made factor. Land, it is a God-made factor, should not be sold or bought. That's why even right now in Tanzania, land, it is the state property. You need to seek for the right of occupancy. The land belongs to the government. Why? He said, can you tell me if there is anyone who manufactured land? And this one came from Freedom and Development. That tell me who manufactured land. You can manufacture a tractor, you can manufacture clothes, but you cannot manufacture a land. So land should be available to everyone. So apart from that, his intention was to establish a genuine democracy. And he was very, very clear that a democracy that is not interfered by any external factors. And later on, I'll talk about some of the qualities of leadership of which he was trying to advocate to the fellow leaders. On January 1968, when Mwalimu was invited at University of Dar es Salaam, the famous university in Tanzania, of which many of African leaders, including the president of Uganda and many others, they've attended there. He was talking about socialism and rural development. He was trying to explain about a good leader who should be considered to promote Ujamaa and African socialism. He said, a good leader will explain what is happening, will teach and inspire. So to him, a good leader is someone who explain, teach, and inspire. If you hear all of his writings, all of his speech, and if you hear from the people, those who have been there, including even my grandparents, they are saying they never considered Nyerere as a president. They considered Nyerere as Mwalimu. Why? Because for him, he was always there to explain, teach, and inspire. And he said, a leader in any Ujamaa village, in a village whereby there is umoja, there is undugu, in a society whereby there is umoja, undugu, he said he or she will do even more than that. He will lead by doing. He or she is always to be in front of the people, showing them what can be done, guiding them and encouraging them. But he's with them, not far from them. So he said, you cannot be a leader by just pointing. You have to be in front. You have to be an example. You have to tell people, let us participate in farming. You being there, the first at that particular farm. Don't say, let us do the farming of maize, of rice. But you are saying, oh, I have a meeting somewhere else. You say, no. If you want to be a good leader, if you advocate beans, you have to be there at the farm, the first one. So the other one, they will come. Don't say you are a leader. So guiding them and encouraging them, but he or you are supposed to be with them, not far from them. And according to him, and this is something which is touching also one of the principles of the Jesuit community, indifferent. He said, for you to be a leader in any particular place, not only in Tanzania, even in Africa, but he was trying to address to a student at University of Dar es Salaam. He said, to be either a peasant or a worker, and he was very, very, very clear to define a worker. He said there is a difference between being a worker and being an employee. For him, being an employee, it means you have an employer who is exploiting you. He said you have to be a worker. You are part of others, those who are working together. So there is no any presence of employer. I say to be a leader in any Ujamaa society, You are supposed to be a peasant or a worker and should in no way be associated with the practice of feudalism or capitalism. I say that one, you have the qualification of being a leader. At the same time, he said, this was 1968, not being a shareholder in any capitalist companies owned by the private people, because he said that will be a conflict of interest. Because if you are a shareholder, at the same time you want to lead the others, that will compromise. Again, he said not to hold any directorship in any private company, not to receive 2 or more salaries, not to own a house which he rent to others. So he said, for you, you can qualify being a leader in any Ujamaa village. If first, you are not a feudalist, you are not a capitalist. Because if you are a feudalist, you'll use land, again, you'll lease to others, and you'll become rich because of others, because land is not a manufactured product. So he was very, very clear when it comes to leaders. And it was very challenging to many of those who were ambitious becoming leaders during his time. He said, if you want to become a minister, you should not be a feudalist. You should not be receiving 2 or more salaries. Why are you receiving 2 or more salaries? So that was his concern and his vision in one way or another. If you go to Mwanadamu na Maendeleo, this is the Swahili version, Mwanadamu na Maendeleo. In English, Man and Development. Man and Development. He said, there is no such thing as socialism without work. A society which fails to give its individual the means to work, or having given them the means to work, prevent them from getting a fair share of the product of their own sweat. It means being sweat and toil. You need to give people something to work, and you need to work with them. Similarly, an individual who can work and provided by a society with the means to work, but does not do so, is equal wrong. That if you are being given something to work and you are not working, you are wrong. And this is coming from Mwanadamu na Maendeleo, or Man and Development. At the same time, he was using, as I said before, a work according to him, that in a socialist we have a worker, we don't have an employer. So that idea, it is bringing to the life of the Society of Jesus. As I said before, me, as an alumni of Jesuit education, as a former student, and currently as a staff at Loyola High School, I've been reflecting and learning about the ideas brought about by Mwalimu in connection to the Society of Jesus. As we all know, the Society of Jesus, the most famous grounded religious order, which was founded by Saint Ignatius. In Swahili, we call Mtakatifu Inyasi. That is the Swahili version. And being confirmed by Pope III in 1540. And with their very, very famous motto, to the greater glory of God. This is the motto of the order, and its objective is to spread the church by preaching and teaching. The concern of the Society of Jesus is Christianity by considering the humanistic values, being there for others, and being responsible for the public. If you connect these ideas, which these are the basis and the foundation of the Society of Jesus. At the same time, just like any established religious order, the stud shows that the Society of Jesus, they believe for the magis, they believe for the competence, they believe for the development of people, they believe in education. And if I remember, once in a while, the former late Father General Adolf, he once visited at Loyola High School. And I was there. It was 2015. Father Adolf, the late, addressing to the Loyola community, he said, the aim of the Jesuit education is to provide freedom, and the Ignatian education integrate mind and the heart. And he gave us a good example of a giraffe. And me, I was there sitting, listening, and reflecting. He said, here in Tanzania, you have many giraffes. We were laughing. We said, yes, we have many of them. He said, a giraffe can be a good example for the Jesuit education and the aim of Jesuit education. I was paying attention. He said, do you know a giraffe has the biggest heart? People, they were quiet. And he said, the reason behind why a giraffe has the biggest and the heaviest heart, because it needs to pump the blood. Why? Because you see, the giraffe has the highest neck. So in order to pump the blood, you need to have a heaviest heart. So in that regard, the Jesuit education is to educate young people, boys and girls, including myself as an alumni of Jesuit education, in order to have a heart that's connected with the mind and for the aim of being men and women for others. And apart from that, we know, including this, the University of Detroit Mercy and the other institution, the Jesuits, they've been advocating education. Why? Because they know to accompany the youth, they have to be educated. At the same time, Mwalimu, he advocated about education and self-reliance because he knew that without education, without teaching others, it is impossible. That's why the name Mwalimu came from. The idea of the Jesuits to impact the youth, to grow, to accompany them, because they know the country needs us, our family needs us, first of all, the country needs us, the world needs us to be leaders, to bring change. So Father General Adolf, he insisted that in order for you to be there for others, you need to educate, to be men and women for others, and to have the heart which is connected with your mind. As I said, this is something which we need to uphold and we need to advance in our life. As I said, at Loyola, as a student, I joined Loyola in 2003. I was taught to be men and women for others, to build families, our village, our country, to respect, justice, freedom, to dialogue, peace, happiness, tolerance, appreciation of human diversity. I was introduced to various readings of St. Ignatius of Loyola, specifically the spiritual exercise, of which in Kiswahili we call mazoezi ya kiroho. Mazoezi ya kiroho. The Jesuit, they call the spiritual exercise, of which the most respected, what we call the daily life tools, of which any recruit, any scholastic, any member of the society, we are encouraged to read that book because it is a way for our better life. We were introduced about Committed Youth for the Poor, CYP. We were introduced about community services, of which Father Oduk today shared about community engaged learning. That is the best version, and I've taken that in an open heart. We were being told about academic excellence and human excellence, that you should not have A, but you don't have respect to others. We are being taught about poverty being the strongest wall of religious life should be loved. We are being taught about freedom in the foundation of happiness. Each man or woman is personally known by and loved by God. This love invited us to respond to our fellow human, must be an expression of radical freedom. Therefore, in order to respond to the love of God, each person is called to be free to give of oneself while accepting the responsibility for and the consequences for an action. Free to walk in faith towards that true happiness, which is the purpose of life. Free to labor with others in the service of the kingdom of God for the hearing of the creation. If you see this Ignatian's worldview, which myself I was taught and myself I was given, I was impacted, the same when I came across with the ideas of Nyerere. These two ideas are the foundation of being men and women for others. Nyerere was there to advocate humans. St. Ignatius was there, and we're being taught, and these, the priests, the fathers, the Jesuit, the Salt of Jesus, they've been advocating from one generation to the other generation. And this is the one which I have to say, the Ignatius view to educate student freedom, to consider others, to have a genuine consideration, to reach those who are marginalized, to help those who are marginalized, to be part, to journey with them. That is the idea which even Nyerere was impacting the African leaders at large. That is the idea which we need to uphold for our current landscape. We have many challenges. However, together we can achieve and you can be a better person. So thank you so much. I really appreciate for your attention.
Oh, thank you so much, Joseph, for that wonderful talk. And one thing that I really enjoyed about it is the way that your life in Jesuit education represented a lot of the things that Father Oduke was talking about our mission, not simply being, things that are just, sort of words on a page, but like a living thing that we bring out into the world to make it a better place. So, thank you so much for being our guest here in Detroit for your first time. You look good in a UDM sweatshirt, by the way. So, welcome to Detroit, and we're so happy to have you. And I know everyone here at UDM is very excited about the deepening connections between University of Detroit Mercy and Loyola High School. So thank you so much for sharing, the history of Tanzania and its connections to the Ignatian educational traditions with us. We'd also like to thank the Kearney Latin American Solidarity Archive for co-sponsoring tonight's events. We'd like to thank Laura Wasner for, she's our Director of Language and Cultural Training and the Study Abroad Coordinator, for her wonderful work making tonight's event happen. Dean Barichka, of course, for her generous support for the African American Studies program and the connections that she's brought over, years worth of connections with Tanzania that she's bringing to UDM, and we're very excited about it. As always, I'd like to encourage you to check out 6 Mile, the official blog of the African American Studies program at the University of Detroit Mercy, for the latest news on our course offerings and events like these. And until then, enjoy your evening and the rest of the week. Good night, everyone.